tonight on Action News 5, a 5% sales tax in North Carolina. It's a possibility, and we'll tell you why.
What's the outlook for more flooding? We'll bring you the answer in a satellite report. Our story on salt junkies will make you think twice before breaking out those white crystals. And our crew in Morehead City reels in a big one during some unusual coverage of the Rock Marlin Festival. Those stories, news, weather, and sports next on Action News 5.
Was Cindy a good girl?
An angel. But her wings.
What?
Her little dress. It's usually soft and smells so nice and fresh.
Well, it ought to smell fresh. I just washed it.
She noticed you didn't use Downy. There's a big difference without the softener.
Downy rinses in the April freshness and softness babies love and helps rinse out static cling.
Smells fresh today, and it's soft.
I'm using Downy again.
Look who noticed.
April Fresh Downy.
We're wired for weather now on Action News 5.
Good evening, I'm Charlie Gaddy, and welcome to our new expanded edition of Action News 5. We've learned that a critical vote will come up tomorrow in a Senate subcommittee, a vote that could ultimately clear the way for a 1-cent sales tax. Now, Ann Devlin is standing by with more on that and has a full report. Ann?
Yes, Charlie, the impact of this vote could hit consumers right where it counts, here at the checkout counter. A Senate Finance Committee tomorrow will consider several bills. Those bills would let taxpayers decide in a referendum whether counties should be allowed to add another penny onto the current 4% sales tax in North Carolina. Now, voters would have the ultimate decision to make on the tax hike. But then again, voters would also be the ones who'd be paying out of their pockets with every purchase they make. Just on groceries alone, an average family of 4 spending $60 a week would hand over an extra $31.20 a year in taxes. That doesn't include all the other purchases that family would make. What would the extra money be used for? Parks and recreation facilities, local fire and emergency service, and the biggest priority of all, public schools. Local officials say they need that tax money to make up for money they've already lost from other sources.
In the long run, there may be a little more revenues from sales tax and a continued increase in the property tax. But we're continually having reductions in the traditional federal support for county-type programs, and a part of it is to respond to the needs of the citizens with those reductions.
But what does the consumer think?
Well, if it went to these schools, I would think it would be a good thing.
I'd be for it, for education, if that's what it'd be used for.
I wouldn't be too happy. Why? I believe there are other ways, cutting back, other than adding taxes on the people.
I think our tax burden's really heavy enough now, because everybody else, all the industries and everything, is having to cut back. Why shouldn't they find ways to cut back like everybody else has done?
Lawmakers sense that the economic mood of consumers isn't good right now, and those consumers will be the ones going to the polls in November to vote. So support does not appear to be strong for the tax referendum.
I'm opposed to that, ma'am, and I seriously doubt that the subcommittee will recommend it.
Charlie, many consumer activists oppose even the idea of increasing a sales tax. That's because they say a sales tax is the most regressive kind of tax. It hurts the poor more than it does the rich. And surely they, along with many others, will be watching to see what that Senate subcommittee does tomorrow. Charlie?
Thank you very much, Ann. North Carolina teachers and other state workers won't see an increase in their paychecks for at least another year. A Joint Appropriations Committee handed down a decision this afternoon to keep state salaries as they are. However, state workers can look forward to the 5% cost of living hike that took place in January, and Don Cobos has more on that. Don?
Charlie, state employees and teachers will have their salaries frozen at current levels. Now that means that the merit raises and teachers are free. Now, at the same time, the Appropriations Committee voted to continue a 5% cost of living increase that took effect back in January. Now, along with these two measures, a last-minute amendment to the budget says that employees will get a $200 check, a bonus check in January of 1983, if tax revenues exceed projections by $36 million. Now, this is the Employees Association.
Of course, we're not real happy with the freeze and haven't been from the outset, but this is one of the things in tough economic times you have to, I guess, learn to live with. But from the standpoint of equitability, we believe it's certainly more fair to all people involved now.
But John Wilson of the Teachers Association still doesn't like it.
Proposal for a $200 bonus is a phantom proposal. They've said to us that the money probably wouldn't be any better, and yet they're trying to put a pacifier before us of, well, maybe if it's good, we'll give you this $200, and that's not enough to appease us in the loss of an increment.
Now, the final budget will be introduced tomorrow, Charlie, in both the House and Senate, and approval is expected sometime in the middle of the week.
All right, Don, thank you very much. American tobacco farmers are being warned tonight that they could lose business overseas if they don't lower prices. That's billions of dollars that growers can't afford to lose. 60% of the tobacco produced in this country is shipped overseas. But these foreign countries have just about matched America's know-how at a much cheaper price. This increased competition from foreign countries should have a severe impact on Tar Heel growers who sold $6 billion worth of tobacco last year. But there's more danger ahead for North Carolina's tobacco industry. Fred Taylor's special assignment, coming up during our second half hour, will look at what some growers believe is a major threat to their very existence. Something that will brighten the future of North Carolina economics is the opening of the General Electric microelectronics plant in the Research Triangle Park. The chips produced at this plant will be used in GE products and will be sold on the open market to computer manufacturers. Currently, 109 employees work at the plant, and 50 more will be added by the end of the year. When the last extension phase is complete, more than 1,000 employees will be hired locally.
Coming here. And I think beyond 5 years, as the whole infrastructure builds, you'll see an industry begin to grow here, not like the Silicon Valley East, as it gets commonly referred to, but something that's acceptable in North Carolina and the people and the companies that are moving in.
This plant is part of GE's world headquarters and computer component division. Cumberland County is winning the war against unemployment, and Bill Draper reports the county is doing it with the help of a rich uncle.
During the past couple of months, several Cumberland County plants, including Purolator and Trisiavati, have laid off workers. Black & Decker's in the middle of a layoff now. The total layoffs at these three plants, more than 200 people. That's the bad news here at the Employment Office, but the good news is that unemployment is actually on the decline. In 1975, unemployment here leaped to 13.5% after two large plants closed down. The recovery has been slow, but last April's 7.8% is the lowest since then. Local Employment Security Commission Director Al Lemire says Fort Bragg has been a big help, and Ronald Reagan's generous defense spending hasn't hurt either.
In the last 6 or 7 months, they have taken on a tremendous number, and I would say between the two areas, they've taken on close to 200 people.
Brand new employees.
Brand new employees.
The base personnel officers say they hire about 7 out of 10 people from local communities.
And yes, there is a waiting list. We on the average have about 700 or 800 people coming here each week seeking employment.
Officials say 4,300 civilians now work on the base, and they don't foresee any layoffs here. With Ronald Reagan in the White House, Cumberland County officials expect continued prosperity, at least for the remainder of his presidential term. At Fort Bragg, Bill Draper, Action News 5.
One reason the military means big business for Cumberland County is the big boon in recruits. Now more than at any time since the draft ended almost 10 years ago, new soldiers are marching in droves. Recruiting officials in the 4 major branches of the military service say hard economic times and the bleak job market are forcing more men and women to sign up. Higher pay and benefits are making the Uncle Sam Wants You posters more attractive. Still more questions are being raised about the Gallant Eagle exercise. Now, a Fort Bragg soldier claims the Army is bringing charges against him for questioning safety procedures used during the massive airdrop this spring in the California desert. Army officials say Staff Sergeant Shiloh Burrows' court-martial has nothing to do with the airdrop. Burrows is accused of disobeying his platoon sergeant's orders. An Army panel is looking into the Gallant Eagle exercise in which 6 people were killed and 160 injured. A Durham teenager charged with the shooting death of another Durham teen will make a first appearance in district court this Thursday. 18-year-old Anthony Joseph Glenn is being held without bond in the Durham County Jail. He is charged with the first-degree murder of Denver D. Pitts, Jr. Pitts' body was found at the Days Inn Motel on Interstate 85. The violent death of a child has been called the most stressful situation a parent may ever have to live through. The heartbreak, the misery, The suffering these parents go through is unmatched by anything else they'll ever encounter. Tonight, reporter Don Griffin takes a look at this phenomenon as he begins his 5-part series on parents of murdered children.
Now all my tears are grief. I miss her, but I wouldn't call her back from where she's at for nothing.
Well, I tell you, he stays on my mind every working hour, every sleeping hour too. I haven't, what you said, rested good since he's been dead.
Read it in the papers or see it on TV, but you just never figured what happened to you or somebody you know, somebody you love.
The people you have just seen have something in common. All of them have had to bury a child. They are parents of murdered children. Parents who are still suffering intense personal anger, bitterness, hopelessness, and despair. How these mothers and fathers cope with their seemingly endless emotions is the focus of my special series all this week. But first, let's begin by examining why the violent death of a child causes such excruciating pain and agony. When a child is murdered, there are painful intrusions into the parent's grief by the news media that must report the event and by authorities who must investigate the case. Raleigh Police Lieutenant Nelson Lockey says breaking the news of death to parents is never easy.
I have had an ambulance stand by because of the emotional shock that you might be giving.
Dr. Jack McCall, a clinical psychologist, has counseled numerous parents whose children have been murdered.
Dr. McCall, you've said that the murder of a child is the most stressful thing a parent can go through. Explain that.
There's 25,000 murders a year in the United States. So that must mean that if each murdered victim has parents, there's 50,000 parents each year who are hurting because first they lost a child, but secondly, somebody willfully, viciously, meaningfully snuffed out their life.
McCall says getting through those first few weeks after a child's murder is the most difficult. Tomorrow we'll see how one family is coping 2 years after the murder of their child. Don Griffin, Action News 5.
During our second half hour, we'll show you why this water may soon be generating the electricity you buy from CP&L. We'll also tell you why your milk prices reflect where you live rather than what it costs this man to produce the milk. And we'll be back with the latest on the limited ceasefire in the Falklands when Action News 5 continues in just a moment.
Our new McRib is swimming in barbecue sauce. McRib sandwich, barbecue flavor really coming across. McDonald's new McRib, you know it tastes like a no-bones barbecue. All meat, all McRib, all through. Tender pork on a home-style bun. With pickles and a taste of onion. You deserve a break today. McRib cooked up McDonald's way. No bones. Tender pork. No bones. New McRib. No bones.
My good friend, Banami, you clean as clean can be. Ink in a sink won't make you blink. Clean as clean can be. My good friend, Banami, you scrub a tub and never flub. You clean as clean can be. My good friend, Banami, you give a hoot, you don't pollute. 96 years old and hasn't scratched yet.
You know, your dad's a pretty special guy. He spends most of his time helping you all year long. But there's one time a year you get to say thanks for doing all those things dads are good for. Thanks with Pierre Cardin accessories from Bell. Fine glove leather belts with imported buckles and glazed lambskin wallets embossed with the Pierre Cardin signature. The kind of extras he might not get for himself. So this year, say thanks, Dad, with a Father's Day gift from Bell. That'll make his day.
Wilson County residents won't get to vote for any of the 11 candidates vying for a seat on the County Commissioners Board come June 29th. This weekend, a panel of federal judges blocked Wilson officials from holding its County Commissioners primary. This action follows a lawsuit charging county commissioners with violating the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Connie Howard has more.
The bulletin board at the Wilson County Board of Elections is filled with sample ballots for the upcoming primary election. But what's missing is a primary ballot for the county commissioners race. That's because there won't be a primary race for the Wilson County Commissioners, at least not on June 29th, and perhaps not for another couple of months. What's holding up the primary election is a decision from the Federal Department of Justice on whether Wilson County violated the 1965 Voting Rights Act. 8 Wilson residents say the county commissioners did violate that law on 3 occasions. In 1965, the size of the board was changed from 5 to 7. In 1967, the board made it so that all county commissioners are elected at large rather than by district. Finally, in 1976, the voters decided not to elect all 7 commissioners at once. Instead, some are now elected every 2 years, others every 4 years. These changes are just now being reviewed by the Justice Department. No approval, no county commissioner primary.
The county is waiting for the U.S. Justice Department to grant approval, disapprove, whichever way. That deadline is June 21st.
Meanwhile, North Carolina law says all those in office will continue to maintain their seats until an election. This leaves those running for office in limbo, and this isn't setting well with some residents, while others seem unaware of what's going on.
I really don't know much about that, really, honey.
I wish they were all going to be running at the same time. I think it'd be much better for the voters. It'd be much easier as far as the commissioners campaigning, just to have a single campaign.
Wilson residents could have a county commissioner's primary election as soon as 2 months after approval comes from the Justice Department, but that may be unlikely. The 8 Wilson residents who charged the county commissioners with violating the Voting Rights Act say they will take the issue to court again. In Wilson, Connie Howard, Action News 5.
Wilson is just one of 40 North Carolina counties governed by the Voting Rights Act, but that act may soon be obsolete if the senior senator from the Tar Heel State has his way. Senator Jesse Helms has been threatening to filibuster the bill that will extend the Voting Rights Act, and that debate was slated to get underway in the Senate this afternoon. Now, for the latest on the action of the Voting Rights Act, let's go to Denise Boyer, who's joined me here on the news set, and she is going to follow the national and international news for us each day at this time and report it for us. Denise?
Well, Charlie, as for the Voting Rights Act, I called Washington shortly before news time, and Senator Jesse Helms' office reports there was no move today on that bill. But Senate Republican leader Howard Baker filed a petition to end that filibuster that has been keeping the Senate from voting on an extension of the Voting Rights Act. Charlie, the most pressing news for the national desk tonight is that military sources in Buenos Aires say the British and Argentine commanders have agreed to a limited ceasefire in the Falklands. Officials say troops on the islands will hold their fire until tomorrow morning or until a solution is reached. In the Middle East, the PLO is reportedly asking for a ceasefire in Lebanon, but Israel hasn't responded. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union has warned Israel that the presence of its troops in Lebanon is viewed as a threat to the USSR's own southern borders. The Kremlin declared it is ready to help Arab nations stop the Israelis. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Alexander Haig says the United States is taking a more neutral stance on the Soviets. Haig commented on the Middle East situation yesterday, saying the U.S. won't demand a pullout of its peacekeeping troops, at least not yet.
Hey, Mr. Donaldson, I think the key aspects of the resolution you referred to are, for the moment, to get a cessation of the hostilities and the bloodshed. And the President's focus thus far has been on that. Clearly, no one would welcome a return to status quo ante in Lebanon with all of the instabilities that we've experienced since 1976.
There wasn't all-out fighting, but rather people against nuclear arms staged a peaceful demonstration in New York today. Police arrested and dragged away more than 1,000 anti-nuclear arms protesters. The group blocked business at the United Nations Missions of Nuclear Powers. Police say it was the largest mass arrest and political demonstration in the city's history. 12 people from Durham were among those demonstrating. Syndicated columnist Ann Landers is doing her share in the anti-nuclear war campaign. Last month, avid readers of Ann Landers sent her column on nuclear war to the White House. Then President Reagan sent off a Dear Ann Landers letter of his own suggesting that Soviet President Brezhnev should get a copy. Well, if Ann Landers gets her way, he will, because she plans on sending him one. That's one way of getting your message across, huh, Charlie?
I should say, Denise. Thank you very much. What does this nuclear power plant being built in Wake County have in common with tobacco farmers? We'll tell you in tonight's special assignment segment. We'll also take a look at some summer movies coming to theaters near you when Action News 5 continues in just a moment.
This Father's Day, you have a choice. You can pay full price for brand name gifts or come to TJ Maxx where designer ties are only $5.99. Famous name dress shirts and casual knit tops are only $8.99. Famous name slippers are only $4.99 and genuine leather wallets are only $4.99. So before you choose your Father's Day gift, ask yourself which would Dad do? Pay full price or come to TJ Maxx and save.
You don't have to pay full price. TJ Maxx, I like it.
If all I had was one little spot of greasy dirt, I could use any cleaner full strength. But I get greasy dirt everywhere. So I clean by the bucket with Top Job. It's a fact. No leading liquid works better in water. Take ammonia. It's good for some jobs, but not greasy dirt. See how much better Top Job cleans it? So if you clean greasy dirt by the bucket, switch from ammonia to Top Job. Its cleaning power holds up better underwater.
Excuse me, ma'am. Are you a game player?
I'm game for anything.
Well, Winn-Dixie's got a new bingo game.
Boring.
It's Winn-Dixie's Beef People Bingo.
Double boring.
But with Beef People Bingo, you can win $1,000.
That's a lot of quarters.
There's $650,000 in cash to be won, plus grocery certificates and instant prize money.
Well, hello, Winn-Dixie.
Get your game cards and tickets from Winn-Dixie and play Beef People
Bingo.
The Florida Keys and Milwaukee, Wisconsin are a whole country apart. But to these guys, they both mean something great. The Keys mean stone crab, big and fresh, and Milwaukee means beer, cold, crisp, old Milwaukee, and the smooth, golden light taste of old Milwaukee Light. And man, what they made for food like this.
And old Milwaukee.
And old Milwaukee Light.
Tastes as great as its name.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Tonight we begin a new segment on our expanded Action News 5, and we call it Money Desk, and our own Tim Smith will be keeping an eye on everything involving money, your money, inflation, jobs, way to save money, all kinds of things. And Tim, I don't know whether there's any money in that desk after the newscast. You might want to look in there and see.
I'll do some checking in just a minute. But first, Charlie, maybe we ought to tell folks that it might be possible that we'll see a 0% inflation rate. Well, after all the talk about double-digit inflation, 0 might be too hard to take. Will not go up overall. The latest consumer inflation rate will be out later this week. The current annual rate of inflation is running about 3% as of April, and the Treasury Secretary says inflation will be at 5 to 6% at the end of the year. That's well below last year's 9% inflation. Of course, we all know gas prices are on the cost you $100 in 1967 will cost you a cool $277 today. One thing that may not be helping inflation is the fact that the government pays $250,000 of your tax money every hour to pay for something it doesn't need. We're talking about a surplus of dairy products. You remember the recent cheese giveaway? It didn't make a dent in the surplus. It cost $127,000 a day just to store the excess. Nationally, milk supplies are about 10% above demand, and the whole dairy price support system costs $2 billion a year. There's a fight going on in Washington over this right now, and we'll, of course, keep you posted on the developments. Milk prices in North Carolina will probably be going up in a couple weeks. Beginning July 1st, dairy farmers will get another 3.5 cents a gallon for their top grade of milk. The Milk Price Commission recently approved the increase. But the price that you, the consumer, pay for milk has little to do with what farmers get, which is the same statewide. Your price is determined more by where you live.
Because the price of milk is regulated at the dairy farm, the price the farmer gets, that's often the price increase or decrease we hear or read about. But the price at the farm is at least 2 levels away from what we all pay for milk at the store. The milk processor will set a wholesale price that the grocer pays, and the grocer will decide how much the customer pays. The only regulation is that neither the processor nor the grocer sell it below cost.
Like the gasoline we all buy for our cars, when it comes to groceries in the supermarket, one of the most common household items is milk. Just about every household buys it. Because of that, milk pricing is very competitive. It'll vary very little from store to store.
They're all very close.
However, prices do vary a lot from city to city.
For example, the Raleigh area has some of the highest prices in the state for milk. You or I can buy this same gallon of milk for about 40 cents less in Charlotte or Fayetteville, 50 cents less in Jacksonville. The reason, pure and simple, is competition, or the lack of it. Most retailers we contacted wouldn't talk about prices. But while the Milk Commission does not set retail prices, it does know how the market works.
Capital cities throughout the United States, because it's primarily a white-collar market, there is less fluctuation in milk prices among the stores, and I guess less pressure by consumers between the competing grocery stores.
You're saying this is what the market will bear here?
Essentially.
So, unless something changes, you can expect the highest milk prices in the state around Raleigh. Incidentally, we also found some mighty high prices in the Lumberton-Laurinburg area, and we really don't know why. You won't find any milk prices in the weekly grocery ads in the paper, but something else that did catch our eye. The A&P grocery chain's advertising is a real sign of the times. The chain is offering a 5% discount on the total grocery bill if you can prove you're out of work by cashing your unemployment check there. We checked with several A&P stores and found that so far there haven't been any takers. The coupon on the paper is good just this week. We don't know if the chain will be continuing the discount. One thing many of you may have been willing to spend your money on this summer is movies. Summer is always the biggest movie season, and the big winner so far is Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Americans spent $14.5 million in one weekend to see the movie when it opened recently, and they're continuing to flock to the film to see if Mr. Spock is really killed. Star Trek is topping last summer's big hit, Superman 2. Also doing well this summer are Rocky III and Poltergeist. And the $40 million extravaganza Annie will open in just a few days. As to whether Mr. Spock is really dead, well, they're already planning a sequel, tentatively called Star Trek in Search of Spock. Charlie, it seems they have a good way to get us back in and bring our pocketbooks and our money with us. Sort of a good thing to do on a rainy day, maybe.
Okay, Tim, thank you. Thank you very much. The rain continues, and so does the flooding in some areas of North Carolina. The News, for instance, is reported above flood level in Smithfield, Goldsboro, and of Fayetteville through Elizabethtown. In the Bartons Creek Township near Wake Forest, this weekend because of the high water level, and residents there say the water came within 1 inch of the road surface.
When you go to Crabtree or something, you 5 or 6 miles out of the way, and it takes you longer. You burn more gas and all that.
A transportation official tells us tonight that the bridge should survive the flooding, but they won't know for sure until the water goes down some and they can check it. River levels for the entire Southeast are measured and monitored in the Southeast River Forecast Center in Atlanta. And tonight, we have a special report from our meteorologist, Greg Fischel. Greg's in Atlanta, and we bring you his report via Sat 5.
I'm here in the River Forecast Center in Atlanta, Georgia. This office, with its computer link-ups to Washington, D.C., keeps track of conditions that could lead to flooding in any part of the southeastern United States, which of course includes the Carolinas. Last week, torrential rains pounded much of central and eastern North Carolina, and water levels began to rise in a hurry. Longtime residents near Crabtree Creek might have been reminded of the year 1973, when damage from a flash flood exceeded $1 million. Fortunately, additional rains over the weekend were fairly light, and hydrologist Dwayne Moyer doesn't see any major problems for the Tar Heel State yet.
Now, on the Cape Fear River, the waters are receding. It's still slightly above flood stage in the very lower end around Lock and Dam number 1. On the Neuse River, waters are above flood stage of the lower end from Neuse on down, and will remain for a few days, but it's just minor lowland flooding. No major flooding event right now.
The job here is not as simple as it may appear at first glance. Data from all over the country is gathered and then fed into a large computer, and that computer has to take into account a great number of factors.
We have to know the condition of the river at the time, whether the river is already high or low. what the conditions are in the soil as far as the amount of moisture that's contained within the soil. Is it wet? Is it dry? Where did the rain occur? When did it occur? What is the topography like in the area where it did rain?
And so water experts here in Atlanta continue to keep a close watch on the situation in North Carolina. They're in constant touch with hydrologists at the National Weather Service office at the Raleigh-Durham Airport. And should additional rains later this week cause problems, they'll be sure to let us know about it. But for now, the situation appears to be greatly improved. This is Greg Fischel reporting via Sat 5 from Atlanta.
Bob, that sounds pretty good, like a good report. But what does it look like here?
Good news. Well, it's not bad, Charlie, although we're so far above normal, it's unbelievable. And we'll show you some maps here in a moment, tell you just where we are and what we're looking for. But today is a day to dry out. And it's a day that we have done that, and more is on the way, although some scattered showers are on the way, too. Highest we've seen so far today, 81, 82 degrees. We're at 81 right now. Morning's low is 63. Humidity at 49%. Barometer's high, but falling slightly at 30.05. Winds out of the north at 6. Carl Lake came down slightly, I think about 1/10 of a foot at 304.4. And Jordan just up 2/10 at 224.7. We'll do it all in the Weather Center right after this message.
For some time now, you've been subjected to a variety of misleading claims made for the individual retirement account. At First Citizens Bank, we'd like to introduce a new concept in IRAs: honesty. No promises of world cruises or horse farms, just some straight facts. Fact, in 30 years, the projected rent for a small apartment is over $3,000 per month. Fact, a small compact car will cost more than $75,000. As you can see, retiring a millionaire won't be a luxury. It'll be a necessity. And that's why every working person should have a First Citizens IRA, not for yachts or ski chalets, but for a comfortable retirement protected from inflation. So if you want honest financial advice about your retirement, talk to First Citizens. We won't promise more than we can deliver.
This is the nerve center of the Stanley StanGuard, the new garage door opener system that does a lot more than open and close your garage door. If someone tries to break in, it's a burglar alarm. If fire breaks out, it's a fire alarm. If carbon monoxide builds up, the Stanley StanGuard warns you and opens the door automatically. The do-it-yourself StanGuard, it's a lot more than a garage door opener.
StanGuard is available at Lowe's for $299.99.
Well, it certainly doesn't come as any news to anyone that we're 4.5 inches above normal in the amount of rainfall for the month of June already. And we got more rain yesterday. And we've asked meteorologist Mike Modrick to bring us up to date on just how much rain did we get yesterday.
Well, Bob, once again, just about everybody got some rainfall yesterday, although in general, the rainfall amounts were not on the heavy side. As a matter of fact, over towards the coast, there were some areas that did not get anything. But also over towards the east, Greenville got 1 2/10 of an inch. Now, that may be enough to slow the fall of the Tar River out there, but also that is close enough to the mouth of the river so that the effect shouldn't be all that noticeable. The water should just be able to go on out. The bottom line really on yesterday's rain is that the amounts were generally about, ½ an inch or less, and that is really not a situation that will cause more problems than we've already got. We do have a chance for more scattered thunderstorms as early as tomorrow evening and more heavy rains possible by Thursday and possibly lingering into Friday. So rivers are likely to remain high, but as of yet there is no widespread problem with people's lives or property.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mike. Mike talked about more rain on the way. The cold front that brought us the rain now yesterday is well out to sea, and there is some activity hanging on the Gulf. What we don't see on a surface weather chart are upper level disturbances. These are small storm systems up about 18 to 20,000 feet. There's one down in the plains now, and this is going to track over to North Carolina and give us the scattered kind probably tomorrow afternoon and evening, and again on Wednesday afternoon and evening. But this is our next major maker right here now. All of this area up through the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas, all through Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, and back into Colorado. There you have tornado watches out this evening, and it is very severe weather. This will bring us some fairly heavy rains by Thursday. Look how uniform the temperatures are around North Carolina, with one exception. Hatteras, cool northwesterly flow off there, 71, but lots of sunshine. We're basically in the 80s. We have 81 degrees. Satellite photo is a infrared photo, and it shows a really good look At the frontal system way off the coast now, and some heavy thunderstorms embedded. For us, light cloud cover, not bad. And the radar picture from the National Weather Service office, action radar going round and round and nothing showing up. Nothing but a nice forecast tonight. Clear skies. Probability of some fog by early morning, and the low tonight 60. Tomorrow, not a bad day really. Lots of sunshine in the morning, and then we talked about the chances now of getting an afternoon and evening thunderstorm tomorrow, the high 84. That afternoon chance again continues on Wednesday, and then by Thursday, as we look at our 5-day forecast, Thursday will show a pretty good chance of getting scattered thunderstorms, and then Friday we'll get clearing, and then Saturday, not a bad day, Charlie. Temperatures hanging in the 80s, and our young artist is Lee Ann Williford, and we're going to show you her picture a little bit later on. I want Lee Ann to say, "Hey, Mom, Dad, my picture's
Get
coming
everybody
up."
around the set,
okay.
right. I don't blame you. Thank you, Bob. There are major efforts underway tonight to change the tobacco program, and regardless of how you feel about tobacco and the health issue, these changes will most likely affect you. In tonight's special assignment, my friend Fred Taylor reports on some of the reasons why the reputation of the golden leaf is a little bit tainted. Fred?
Well, Charlie, you know, some people despise tobacco primarily for its related products that have raised health questions, while others see tobacco in a different perspective. But no matter how you look at it, you cannot deny tobacco's contribution to North Carolina's economy.
The cloud of dust almost hides from view the farmer on his tractor preparing this field for another crop. But the crop this farmer has staked his future on has already been planted. It's tobacco, the golden leaf. It can spell the difference between a farmer's survival and bankruptcy. Off the farm, tobacco was responsible for thousands of jobs.
Well, I never smoked in my life, but my husband has been connected with the cigarette business all his life, and this was his way of making a living, so I would like to see people smoke.
But because of health concerns, tobacco has made a lot of enemies over the years. A tax on smoking, use of your tax dollars for price supports, criticism of how allotment holders are getting rich off farmers brought the tobacco program to its knees in Congress last year. Congress ordered changes made, changes tobacco state congressmen like Charles Rose of Fayetteville will be proposing this week.
We'd like to give it the medicine it needs to make it last for a long time to come.
That medicine may be too strong to suit some growers. They'll have to use their money to bankroll the price support program instead of using your tax dollars.
I got an acre and 4/10 in the biggest spot, Jim, and 8/10 right here.
It doesn't run. These farmers are reporting to the county ASCS office the amount of tobacco they'll be growing this year.
4 and 2. 5 acres even.
Many of these farmers don't own allotments. They have to pay cash to someone else for the privilege of growing tobacco, and that rent can add up to several $1,000s a farm. A recent General Accounting Office report shows only 26% of allotment holders actually grow tobacco. Ron Perry of Wendell is a young farmer who grows tobacco on his farm, but he has to rent the privilege from an allotment holder. Who are allotment holders? Well, they're doctors, lawyers, other farmers, even power companies.
In fact, in Wake County, CP&L is the largest tobacco allotment owner. They have no business with tobacco allotments.
CP&L bought land to build the Sharon Harris nuclear power plant. The land included 72 acres in tobacco allotments. These allotments are rented out to nearby growers. Last year, CP&L reported earnings of nearly $93,000 in tobacco allotment rental and land leases from its holdings in the two Carolinas.
The requirement will be put in the law that if you're not primarily an agricultural corporation, you will be asked to sell your allotment by the end of 1983.
CP&L has told Action News 5 it welcomes this change because the company has no interest in being in the tobacco business. But there are those who don't welcome this change.
Tobacco. These young guys that holler all the time about, you no longer farm, you 70, 80-year-old folks, you ought to give me your allotment with no compensation.
Paul McCoy is a farmer who doesn't like what's going to happen to those retired farmers who are counting on allotment rentals as a retirement income.
He deserves his dignity of being able to retire in peace and harmony and quiet and go fish a while and let that young squirt out there just pay him a little money because the man worked for what he let him have.
The allotment and the price support changes are a long way from law. Those are just two of the recommendations in a package a subcommittee will recommend to Congress. And Action News 5 has learned that that package will be given to the full Congress next Monday. The proposals are designed to shore up the program against harsh criticism from tobacco opponents. And in a future report, Charlie will also report how These new changes have not swayed the tobacco opponents from their original arguments.
All right, Fred, thank you. You'll also get a first-hand look at a marlin fishing tournament with our sports crew after Bob's 5-day forecast. But first, we'll tell you why you should think twice before you reach for the salt shaker tonight when Action News 5 returns in just a moment.
When you're a big guy like me, people always want to see just how strong you are. So after this arm works, this arm always relaxes with light beer from Miller. The light's got a third less calories than the regular beer, and it tastes great. What I like about it is it's less filling. So when you're at a hot match like this, you can't afford to get filled up.
You have any time?
Yeah. About 8:30.
Yeah, thanks.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer. And less.
Next.
Watch closely, because you've never seen a car like this before. Introducing Quantum from Volkswagen. Quantum was designed and built in Germany to provide the luxury and comfort of a bigger car and the agility and economy of a smaller car. Volkswagen calls this Quantum technology. For a first-hand look, see your Volkswagen dealer. Because from our vantage point, Quantum is the most remarkable car you'll ever drive.
Now is the time. TV5 is the place.
It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be hard. We're gonna have to suffer a little.
Sounds like fun.
Golly, he's back. It's the rib-tickling misadventures of Goofy Gomer Pyle.
I got an 80-year-old grandma that can go up on that better than that. Well, bless her heart.
Don't miss Gomer Pyle, weekdays at 5:30 on TV5.
Now is the time. TV5 is the place.
Salt. Nearly all of us use it, many of us abuse it every day. But how much salt is too much? Denise Boyer has been researching that issue and is here with me again to begin a week-long look at the salt habit, and a habit that you may be doing something to your health. Denise?
That's right, Charlie. Salt affects all of us differently, but more and more evidence is pointing to the fact that salt is one of the leading causes of high blood pressure.
Shake it up.
To us, it's salt. Its scientific name is sodium chloride, and it's our primary source of sodium. We've been fascinated with these crystals for centuries. For years, salt was so hard to come by that it was valuable. In fact, Roman soldiers were paid for a hard day's work with gold and salt. And if the soldier didn't work very well, hence the adage, he's not worth his salt. Today, salt is plentiful. At the shores of the Great Salt Lake in Utah sits piles of the salt waiting for demand, and that we do. According to the USDA, healthy folks should consume about 2.5 teaspoons of salt each day, but many of us are eating twice that much. It's easy to do. Salt is everywhere, in our food, our water, medications, and even toothpaste. But we're our own worst enemies when it comes to too much salt.
Do you think that's because we're picking up that salt shaker too often?
Probably has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
We need salt to live, but medical evidence links salt to a chain of health problems.
It's recognized, I think, and more generally accepted, that if an individual has a tendency to high blood pressure or hypertension, that a major contributing factor to that problem is the amount of sodium in the body.
It's become more apparent in the last 10 or 15 years at any rate that what a large public health problem high blood pressure is.
Although research isn't complete, there's enough evidence that salt relates to heart problems and kidney problems and is one of the hallmarks of high blood pressure, a villain that strikes 60 million Americans. Doctors are building their strongest case against salt by watching other cultures.
If you go to small societies such as in the upper Amazon Valley, there's a tribe of Indians that have essentially no sodium in their diet, and they have essentially no hypertension. They do not have any high blood pressure in the population of those Indians.
Studies reveal salt isn't the only factor in high blood pressure. Race, family history, and age also come into play.
For most of us, our kidneys will get rid of the extra salt. It's probably an oversimplification, but it seems that in people who have high blood pressure, there's something that makes the kidneys not eliminate the extra salt.
These days, salt addiction starts early in life. Tomorrow, we'll see how it starts. Young or old, the main thing to remember is that not all of us will be affected by salt. 2 individuals will react differently. But the effects of salt sneak up on you, so it's something you should always be aware of and watch no matter who you are. Charlie?
Denise, thank you. You know, it's not salt, Denise, but sugar levels that'll be studied at Duke University. 2 scientists there will test the theory that diabetics can control their blood sugar levels through relaxation and behavioral training. Doctors Richard Serwitt and Mark Feingloss were chosen by the National Institute of Health to do that work at Duke, and they were awarded a grant of $137,000. My buddy Tommy Shooter's here. Just got here, as a matter of fact. That's a quick change. Denise
Oh, that really is. That's what you call magic.
Yeah.
You know, when you started pulling for the Atlanta Braves, the Braves did pretty well. You know, they were in the bottom last year. Why don't you do something for the Chicago Cubs? Yes, you were. You were in the aisles pulling for the Atlanta Braves when they were making that surge. Why don't you do it for the Cubs? Because the Cubs have lost 13 games in a row. They went to try to snap that losing streak this afternoon. Raymond Floyd, hot going into this week's U.S. Open. You know he's from North Carolina, while another North Carolinian, Scott Hoke, rated a good, solid outside chance for the U.S. Open. Sports coming up in just a minute.
You'll feel the response the moment you turn the key. Exxon gasolines perform. You start with Exxon Unleaded, one regular that can quiet knock without asking you to buy premium. And if that isn't enough, there's our premium, Exxon Extra Unleaded. To make sure your car performs, make sure your gasoline performs. Exxon, quality you can count on.
What'd you say this was again?
McDonald's calls it the McRib sandwich. It's a new kind of Q.
McRib? I don't see any bones.
Hey, who wants bones in a sandwich? Right. McRib is all meat, lean pork that's grilled and simmered in a hickory smoke-flavored barbecue sauce, and put on a home-style roll with pickles and onions. Well, how about it? The McRib sandwich, a new kind of Q at McDonald's.
Okay, Fayetteville's Raymond Floyd is a street player. There's no doubt about it. And when he's hot, has the timing down right, none is better. And Mr. Floyd is on a hot streak, believe me. And thus, he's moved into a favorites role for the U.S. Open, which begins this Thursday in Pebble Beach, California. Yesterday, Floyd won his second tournament in 3 weeks by winning the Memphis Open with a 17 under par, 271 total. It was good for the $72,000 top prize, and it propelled Floyd over the $2 million mark in career earnings, only the 6th pro to achieve that mark. Now, as you look at the U.S. Open favorites, you got to go with the Watsons, Nicklauses, Stadlers, and Floyds, but if you want a long shot, why not Raleigh Scott Hoke? Hoke is having a good year. He's in the top 10 in earnings, but Scotty says there's a problem with this year's Open. He's not too fond of Pebble Beach.
Beach and myself don't seem to get along too well. I played well there this year during the Crosby, but I have to play there. I have to play too well there just to do, you know, top 10, top 15 like in the Crosby. But I don't know. Maybe my game's changed a little bit by the time I go back. It's just a tough course for me to score well on.
And Hoke added that if he is to play well, he's going to have to be very accurate with the driver, and of course, he's going to have to putt well. And if you follow ladies golf, you know of Jan Stevenson, the glamour girl of the LPGA Tour. Galleries flock to her like ducks flock to a lake, but Miss Stevenson's had some problems away from golf. She's currently embroiled in a very messy divorce annulment case, and it's affected her play, but not this weekend. Miss Stevenson put all her problems behind her, rose to the occasion, and won the LPGA Championship in Kings Island, Ohio. She won by 2 shots over Joanne Carner. It was good for the $30,000 top prize. Well, 5 schools competed for the ACC Championship in lacrosse this past season, and of course the national champion, North Carolina, came out of this conference. But as Bob Holliday reports, a new NCAA rule could really put the clamps on what was becoming a pretty popular sport in this area.
The 1982 State Carolina lacrosse game. It may be the last State Carolina lacrosse game if the Wolfpack follows through on a proposal to cancel lacrosse.
I would say there's a very good chance we will phase it out. I'm not going to tell you today what recommendations that have to be made to other people on the thing. In other words, you're asking questions that have to do with policy that hadn't been necessarily decided on the thing. But I can tell you that we will probably phase out 2 or 3 men's sports over the next 2 or 3 years.
Money isn't the reason. State's athletic program is healthy as ever. But the NCAA is reducing the limit on scholarships for non-revenue sports from 70 to 60. Casey says there is no way State can continue to adequately support as many sports as it's supporting now. Should State phase out lacrosse, it would cause the conference to drop the stick game as an official ACC sport, since 5 schools must compete for eligibility. Carolina, remember, has won its last 2 Carmichael Cups literally by winning the State Carolina lacrosse game. So this decision will have some interesting side effects. Bob Holliday, Action Sports 5.
And the thrill of victory for the first time, always the sweetest, and that's the way it was yesterday for young Tim Richmond. Richmond picked up his first NASCAR victory yesterday by winning the Riverside 400 in Riverside, California. He edged out Terry Labonte by a little over 3 seconds.
They did a fantastic job. I tell you, those drivers say this, but it's true. I guarantee it. They won the race. The fuel mileage on this car was fantastic, and we just kind of nursed it the last 5 laps because it started running out at the flagman, but Dale and the boys made the right move.
He's pretty excited, huh? The second place finish by Labonte was his 5th of the season, and he increased his lead in the points chase to 66 over Darrell Waldrop. And let's go to baseball, where the Chicago Cubs, who never get any better, were trying to slugfest. Chicago 12, Philadelphia 11, and in the American League, Oakland beat Toronto by a 4-2 score. And Charlie will be back. Fishing.
I want to hear that story. Thank you very much, Tom. Different people have different ways of making a little extra money. Some take a second job, others start a mail order business. But as of today, a Raleigh electrical contractor has gone them one better. He's selling power to one of the state's largest utilities. Jody Davis has the story.
For Joe Ellen, a dream came true today with the flick of a switch. He's been planning it for 10 or 12 years. He's been working on it for 6 months. And now, Joe Ellen has his very own hydroelectric power station on the Rocky River.
I guess it's just kind of a fascination, a hobby of always wanting to do something like this. And then when the economics got to looking like it was financially feasible, then it started getting more attractive and went ahead into it.
The Chatham County plant was built in the 1920s, and it produced electricity until it was shut down in 1957. Rot was beginning to set in when Ellen bought the plant 3 years ago. This was no small job for Ellen. He had to fix up the building, overhaul a turbine, and then bought this old cotton mill generator to power the plant. Altogether, a $125,000 investment. Now, once again, the generator is converting the rushing river into electric power. When all the bugs are out, the plant will turn out a modest 180 kilowatts. Ellen is selling every ounce of that juice to Carolina Power and Light.
Although this plant in itself will not mean that much, it, coupled with a number of other sites over our system, will help to reduce our peak load.
Barring any problems, the plant should gross Ellen between $40,000 and $50,000 a year. Should CP&L get a rate increase, Ellen's share would go up too, and that would make the glow in his eyes that much brighter. Jody Davis, Action News 5 on the Rocky River in Chatham County.
Well, Bob has some news that there may be some storms on the way now. You'll be watching.
Charlie, as we mentioned a little earlier, there are some thunderstorms on the way, and they'll probably be in here maybe the scattered kind late tomorrow and then again on Wednesday, and possibility on Thursday. Storms spawn tornadoes. You know, we're not necessarily known as a tornado state, but I think it's three tornadoes in the past 11 days in North Carolina as we look at some of the damage there in Zebulon on the recent one. So we can have some heavy storms. We also can have a real good look at our 5-day forecast, and we'll do that right after this message.
Introducing a great new taste in toothpaste, Advanced Formula Crest in a gel.
I love the flavor. I love the fight. When you fight cavities with a gel as tough as Crest, you're in good company. More dentist families use Crest than any other toothpaste.
New Crest Gel. It's more than just a great tasting gel. It's the only gel with Fluorostat, Crest's proven cavity fighting system.
I love the flavor. I love the fight. First they made their cavity fighter even tougher, then they put it in a gel. Gives them a real shot at their best Crest checkups yet.
Now Advanced Formula Crest has 3 flavors, regular, mint, and new gel, all with Fluorostat, Crest's proven cavity fighting system.
Great taste. Great checkups.
New Crest flavor, same Crest fight.
Will you take a look at my Hawaiian shirt?
Do I have to?
It's not clean.
It's clean. I looked.
Smell.
Look, it's clean.
But look at these dark colors. How can you tell?
You can tell with clean-smelling Gain. Gain not only gets out the soy sauce splash you can see, it even gets out the smelly dirt you can't see. Because with clean-smelling Gain, there's more to clean than meets the eye.
Just look how clean my shirt is.
I don't have to look.
With clean-smelling Gain, there's more to clean than meets the eye.
You know, your dad's a pretty special guy. He spends most of his time helping you all year long. But there's one time a year you get to say thanks for doing all those things dads are good for. Thanks with a couple of Munsingwear Grand Slam knit shirts from Bell. Practical sports apparel made for any occasion. And in Munsingwear, he'll look as good as he feels. So this year say thanks, Dad, with a Father's Day gift from Bell. That'll make his day.
Well, this really isn't a young Santa Claus. He's our newest addition to our meteorological team here in the Weather Center. He's Bill Schmidt from Allentown, Pennsylvania, a graduate of Penn State University in meteorology, and I want to take time to welcome him. Bill will be primarily responsible for radio for our sister stations and for the North Carolina News Network stations. And Bill, good to have you.
Thanks a lot, Bob. I'm really looking forward to living and forecasting in the Raleigh area.
Another Yankee moving south, you know. They get down here, they love this weather. Bill, good. We'll be talking to you later. Okay, now we talked about tonight, very nice. Tomorrow, clear in the morning, lots of sunshine now as the front's gone, but there is an upper level disturbance coming through, and it'll give us a chance of an isolated thunderstorm or so tomorrow afternoon. Okay, here are the 5 days now. Let's take a look at them. Tomorrow, and again on Wednesday, a chance of late afternoon and evening thunderstorms. By Wednesday, we'll be back into the warm air once again, the high 88 degrees. Thursday, that cold front that we talked about way out in the plain states will be in here. Give us a very good shot at getting scattered showers and thunderstorms. And the high on Wednesday, it'll be a little cooler, 83. General clearing on Friday, although we might have a lingering shower. And right now, golf and fishing day looks real good, mostly sunny, the high 85. And we alerted Leanne Williford that her picture was going to be shown. Leanne's from Rocky Mount, and Charlie, that's just a beautiful outdoor scene, and that's it from our Weather Center.
It is indeed. Thank you very much, Bob. We still have a story from Bob Holliday about the big one that didn't get away, but first, tonight's WRAL editorial, and here is Joel Lawhon.
The dedication of GE's Microelectronics Center in the Research Triangle Park marks a giant step forward in North Carolina's journey towards high technology. It would hardly be an exaggeration to call it the beginning of a new era. Now, we don't mean to infer that there are no drawbacks to the microelectronics industry. There are toxic chemical wastes, and many of the jobs are not high-paying ones. But the same disadvantages exist in older North Carolina industries, like chemicals and textiles. The big advantage of microelectronics is that superiority in this field can put North Carolina at the leading edge of high technology, and that's where the future lies. Even the low-paying jobs will be more secure than those in older industries because of expanding demand for microelectronic products and because of less competition from cheap foreign labor. It is research and development by GE and others that America must rely on if we hope to stay ahead of cheap foreign labor and maintain our high standard of living. North Carolina can lead the way by encouraging the microelectronics industry to locate in the Research Triangle Park.
This has been a WRAL editorial. Printed copies are available, and viewer comment is welcome. Tom Suter and Bob Holliday are both with me with a fish story. Remember, we do not lie to our viewers. Just remember that.
Well, you know, last week Bob assigned himself to just a tough story to go down and marlin fish for 3 days. Why didn't you assign me to that?
The trips we get paid to take, Tom, I tell you. You know, Tom, about 110 boats go out each day during the Big Rock Marlin Festival in Morehead City. Only about 5 or 6 of these boats catch either a blue marlin or even a white. Jay Jennings and I went out with Captain Fred Rouse and his crew from Kinston, and by golly, our boat brought one home.
Our quest begins well before sunrise. Even a fast boat needs 2 hours to reach the blue waters of the Gulf Stream. 9 o'clock, 12 miles south of Big Rock. Fishing time begins. The crew to battle stations. Our friend Lee Moore puts his feet up. Lee hopes a nap will keep him from seasickness, but his nap ends abruptly at 9:05.
Hey, took the yap. Damn.
There will be no seasickness today.
Bring it down here. All right, Lloyd, help me get the rod down here, man.
ahead, you get some. Now, use your back. Lift up. Now, reel when you come down. Reel as you come down.
As Lee works, the excitement builds on the boat. What have we hooked?
Every time I come in a little bit, he takes off again.
9:15 and McNisker.
Whoa! It's a ball always up first. All right! Okay! Get up there, baby, and stand!
9:25. The good ship Sea Fox bags a white. There will be no more catches this day, but one of our crew finds another surprise on return to the shore. The marlin fisherman's way of saying, attaboy.
Tom, you know, I was glad, Jay and I were both glad that we were not the ones in the chair. We might have been thrown overboard.
Did you catch a fish? Did you land one?
Well, Tom, you got to give the boat credit.
Well, I didn't ask about the boat. I asked about you.
We want you to catch a fish.
I was next in the chair, and there was a bite, but he got away.
Next to the chair.
I knew somebody would lie before it was over. Coming up tonight at 11, we'll talk to the family of a Fort Bragg soldier who's now stationed smack in the middle of one of the hottest spots in the world, the Middle East. And tonight, the General Assembly may make a change in the way points are given for auto violations, a change that could save you some money. So join us tonight at 11 for those and other stories. Stay tuned now for all the world and national news up next on ABC. I'm Charlie Gaddy. For all of us here on Action News 5, we thank you so much for watching, and good night.